Thanks for joining me in this series about how to mix live music. We've already got the drums sounding good. Now we're going to move on to the electric bass, guitars and keyboards. The key instruments for most rock and pop bands. We'll start with the bass guitar, because getting that to sound right will help the other instruments to sit nicely on top. Even though the bass's fundamental frequencies cover a range between about 40 Hz and 400 Hz, its harmonics reach up to 4 kHz, so it has potential to mask the sound of the other instruments. We're just going to focus on the direct sound of the bass, using a DI box, though it could also be possible to put a microphone to its speaker cabinet. Firstly, just because it's a bass instrument doesn't mean you should automatically boost the low EQ band. The room might have so much low frequency resonance that you need to actually reduce the low band. Reducing the low band will eliminate some boominess from the sound. Increasing it can add depth and body to the sound, but don't be afraid to leave it flat if you think that sounds best. The high shelf won't have much influence on the sound, so let's reduce it a bit to make space for other instruments in that zone. Now the mid band. My tip is to cut this rather than boost, to make space for the guitar and piano. If you cut about 6 dB with the frequency somewhere between 500 Hz and 1.5 kHz, it will keep the bass's low depth and high definition while removing its growly, nasal mid-tones. If you have 2 mid-bands available, like on TF mixers, then you may be surprised to hear that boosting around 2 to 3 kHz can add a certain amount of pop to the sound. Take a listen to these examples. The first example has a flat high mid-band, while the second is boosted at 2.5 kHz. Next, for the electric guitar. In this case, a microphone is used a few centimeters away from the speaker cabinet, because the sound the guitarist wants is often created by the combination of effects units, amp, and speaker cabinet. For the guitar, we have to consider the sound could change drastically from song to song, unlike drums and bass, which remain fairly consistent. So, we may need to return to the guitar EQ frequently during a performance. Anyway, because we're dealing with a microphone on stage, it's going to pick up many unwanted sounds. So let's eliminate them as much as we can. Reduce the low shelf by at least 6 dB and the high shelf by at least 3 dB. So, it's all about the mid-band. Remember, because we're using a microphone, it's safer to reduce the gains rather than boost. If you cut around the 300 Hz point, you'll create a thinner, more funky tone. But if you reduce around the 3 kHz point, you'll create a thicker tone for warmer jazzy vibes or for a full, overdriven wave of sound. Listen to these two examples as a comparison. Only the mid frequency is changed using the MGP mixer. All the other knobs stay in the same position. Try both 300 Hz and 3 kHz, and the frequencies in between, in combination with the bass and the keyboards, to find the best balance. Talking of the keyboard, normally we would expect to use a stereo DI box to connect this to the mixer, so it should be producing a good clean sound already. Remember, if you can hear a buzz, the earth or ground lift switch may need a push. Like the guitar, a keyboard can produce many different sounds and different amounts of rhythmic energy. The best EQ setting will vary from song to song and style to style. However, as a general rule, to fit in well with a full band, start by reducing the low shelf up to 6 dB and the high shelf by around 3 dB. And focus on the mid-peak again. Try reducing a different frequency to the guitar, so they complement each other. For example, 300 Hz for the guitar and 3 kHz for the keyboards. Alternatively, try reducing the keyboard about 4 dB around the 1 kHz mark to make space for the vocals. Basically, there's no right or wrong here, but keep it subtle to preserve the sound character the musician has selected. Cutting 1 to 2 kHz will reduce tinniness in the sound. Cutting around 300 Hz will reduce mushiness. Cutting around 5 kHz will reduce sparkle. Choose the most appropriate to suit the style of music. Well, that's all for this chapter. In the next session, we'll be EQing acoustic instruments, including guitars, strings, and brass. Join me again then.